out of the ground, out of the ground. Yes, I pray for people in the north, in the north, 'cause our problems are the ones of abundance, ones of doubt. Water comes up, water comes up out of the ground, out of the ground. When the levee breaks, they'll be staying. When the fields go dry, dry, dry. When the fields go dry, dry, dry. 'Cause we take from river, put in our pools. Yeah, we take from river, just to put in our pools. Yeah, we take, yeah, we take, yeah, we take. Take, take, take. Yeah, we take from river just to put in our pools. Yeah, we take from river, put in our pool. Yeah, we take, yeah, we take, yeah, we take. Take, take, take. But you know we got to give some back. Yeah, you know we got to give some back. Yeah, you know we got to give some back to this earth. Yes, I pray for people in the South, in the South, 'cause their problems are the ones of flooding, ones of drought. Water comes up, water comes up out of the ground.
Awesome, thank you. Thanks, Phrase. We got a little bit of a preview performance there. Thanks for jumping in there. Hey, everybody. We are going to get started now. We're a few minutes past 11 a.m. on the West Coast, so it's time to jump in. My name's Galen Armstrong. I'm the Western Canada organizer with For Our Kids, and I'm talking to you today from my home. You might be able to hear a baby crying in the background here and there. I live in Cowichan territory, just west of Duncan on Vancouver Island in BC. And so thanks everyone for joining us, for being on here today. And we're here again in some really strange times. Hi, Yarrow. And I'm looking forward today, really looking forward today to today's presentation. We're going to hear from Merran Smith from Clean Energy Canada. And we're also going to get to start with FRASE. And you just heard him playing a bit of guitar, but we want to bring a little bit of music to everything that we're doing here. So thanks so much, FRASE, for being on here. We're also going to take some action together today. So we're talking about the green recovery, which you'll learn about from Merran. And after Merran speaks, after the Q&A, we're going to do a social media storm. And so here's a little action that you can take right now. If you've got a pen and some paper nearby, maybe some scissors, doesn't matter. Maybe it's just pen and paper. You could draw a heart or make a heart. I've made a green heart here, and I've written "Start the Green Recovery Now" right on it. So this is a little activity. Oh, Lala's got one too. This is an activity you can do maybe while you're listening, following along. If you don't have that, that's fine. You can still take the action towards the end of the hour here. Before we start, I want to give a shout out to the other For Our Kids organizer. She's in Eastern Canada in London, Ontario. Lala Bloomer's there, and you'll hear from her a bit later. She's going to be running the Q&A. And so if you have questions for Merran, put them in the chat box. Looks like lots of people have found the chat box. There's a message from Lella there asking folks to just say where they're calling in from today. But put your questions there and hopefully we'll get them answered. For those who don't already know, For Our Kids is a network of parents and grandparents. We're working to stop, to slow, to address climate change in any ways we can in our local communities. So there's a lot of team leaders on the call now. I can't see everyone, but I know a lot of you are here, and thanks for being here and doing all that you do in communities. If you want to get involved, if you want to become a team leader, you can sign up on our website. You can find my information there or Lala's and get in touch and we'll get you started. Also, we're going to host another one of these in 3 weeks from now, Friday, May 8th. So you can mark your calendars. It's going to be a special Mother's Day event. So we'll have more details in the next week or so, but you can mark your calendars now for that. And so now we're going to kick off the event, and I'm going to introduce FRASE, and I see Emily, also known as Embody Movement. I see a foot back there.
There she
She's
is.
there too. There she is.
Hi.
Hi. FRASE is a singer, producer, and multi-instrumentalist who grew up in Montreal and migrated to the mountains of BC in 2017. So he's known, for those of you who know him, you'll know his music tends to be bass heavy, electronic music. He has an amazing voice. Today he's going to be playing an acoustic song, and you got a little bit of a preview already. When FRASE does live shows, he's joined by Emily there, Embody Movement. His partner, she's a dancer, percussionist, vocalist, trained contemporary dancer with years of experience in dance. And their love story and dance collaboration began opening for Fatboy Slim in 2016, many years ago. Since then, they've had a baby, and I just love following you guys on Instagram. That's really how I quote unquote know you. I've loved seeing you this past summer, seeing you with your baby on tour, playing shows, doing it all as parents. It's like as a parent of babies that are the same age as yours, I'm so impressed. Like getting out of the house is a huge thing, and to go and make it to a venue and play shows is really incredible. So if you don't know them, check them out on social media. Check out their videos for sure. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I'll just pass it over to you, and I'd love if you can just start by telling us where are you today and how are you dealing with this current COVID crisis that we're in?
Thanks, Galen. We're in Wakefield, Quebec right now at Emily's mother's home. We had just spent a winter in Ontario visiting family, Emily's father, and then had just moved to Montreal and lived there for about a week when this thing happened. And being in the city again was a little bit overwhelming, so we've kind of taken to the country here in this beautiful home, and are lucky to be here. I felt with having a baby in this time, she doesn't notice much. She's super happy, and it's been a really great thing to wake up to her smiling every morning, and a new every day is a new day, and just kind of look at the world through her eyes. I think that's really helped my mental health, and just being able to lighten the mood. She's always laughing and happy. That's also been one of the reasons why we've been able to tour and play shows, because her temperament is just so great and loves people and loves dancing. We brought her to a house dance class in Montreal, and I had her on my front while Emily was learning some new dance moves, and she was just loving it. So she loves dancing and moving. She's sleeping right now. We were hoping to have her awake for this, but yeah, that's okay.
Don't wake her up. Don't wake her up.
Yeah, I'm not gonna wake her up. I'm gonna play a song. It's called Paper Cuts, and I wrote it a while ago, but finished it last year while I was living in Weimar, BC, when I was a part on the board of Protect Weimar Watershed. I kind of brought it out again because of just the lyrics kind of hit on the topic that we were talking about, and there's a lot of clear-cut forestry going on there, and the the little town that we lived in's watershed was in threat of being cut down, and basically leaving the little town to have no water supply. So we've been fighting them, and it's working. So this is kind of a song to help that movement and just give it a voice. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. Fill my cup, we drink from the same well. Fill my cup, we drink from the same well. There's anguish and comfort, no food to desert, poverty stricken, luxurious living. We are lost in the high-low. We could be found somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the middle. Caught in that cycle, on repeat, chasing that paper, but paper cuts bleed. These paper cuts bleed. These paper cuts bleed. These paper cuts bleed. These paper cuts bleed. Paper cuts will bleed. Paper cuts will. These paper cuts will bleed. Paper cuts will bleed. We are lost in the high-low. We could be found somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the middle. Oh, so what are you doing to keep this flow light? We need water just to survive. What are we doing to keep this flow light? We need water just to survive. So fill your cup, but fill mine. Fill your cup, but fill mine. Come on. Fill your cup, fill mine. You can snap along. Fill your cup, come on. Fill mine, sing it. Fill your cup, fill mine. Fill your cup, fill mine. Fill your cup, fill mine. Come on. Fill your cup just to survive. Fill your cup, fill mine. Fill your cup just to survive.
Amazing, thank you. Oh man, everyone's muted,
Thanks a
but
lot.
there's a applause happening out there. I don't know. I think I saw a few people dancing there, and that was exactly what I needed. And I'm sure that's probably the case for a lot of us. So thank you so much. Thanks for being here. And
Thanks for having me.
yeah, check out, Lella posted a link to FRASE's website. Check that out. Check out their music online on social medias. And yeah, sorry, no baby. I didn't promise anyone a baby today, but go to Instagram and you can check out their baby. So we're gonna move on and hear from today's speaker today. It's Merran Smith, as everybody knows. Merran Smith is a mother of two. She's the executive director at Clean Energy Canada, which is an NGO that works to transform Canada's energy systems to reduce fossil fuel dependence and the risks of climate disruption, something that we're all interested in here. Today, Merran will discuss the elements of the green recovery, what it could look like on the federal and provincial levels in the wake of COVID-19, and the politics we need to get there, and how we as parents, as grandparents, can play a role. So after Merran's short presentation, we'll do some question and answers. So a reminder, or for anyone who just joined, you can put your questions in the chat and Lella will see those. And you can make a little green heart if you need a little activity. Perhaps you've got a kid who wants to make a heart. It doesn't have to be green, doesn't have to be cut out. You can make a heart, and if you do, we'll use it in the action later on. So I'm going to pass it over to Merran. Merran, thank you so much for being here today.
Great, thanks a lot, Galen, and great to see so many of you. I'm just thrilled to be here with you all, and I love the green heart idea. I think if we could get green hearts going up across the country, that'd be fabulous to see. So I'm going to do the scary little thing here of sharing my screen. So I'm going to hope that it's going to go ahead without any hitches.
You got this. Fingers crossed. Here we go. Looks great.
As Galen said, I've got 2 daughters. And, you know, when I started to take my daughters to climate strikes last year, I have to say, the first one, I just bawled my eyes out thinking of, you know, I've been working on environmental issues and climate change for really most of my life, but having to have my kids go out there and strike because it's, you know, we haven't succeeded. It really, really got me in my heart. So I'm just so happy to see all these other parents and kids out there. And the interesting thing is I think we are able, we're at a moment where we're able to turn it around. And so on to the clean stimulus. So as mentioned, I'm lucky enough to be the executive director of Clean Energy Canada. So what is Clean Energy Canada? I like to think of us as we are not your normal think tank. We focus only on solutions. We focus on what are the clean energy transition solutions to move us off of fossil fuels and on to clean solutions. And that's what I get to think about every day. So I work with an amazing team of people. We're based at Simon Fraser University. So check us out at cleanenergycanada.ca. Check out our Facebook feed, our Instagram feed. One thing that we've really realized is that there's so much talk about the problems, but not so much talk about the solutions all the time. And so that's the gap that we've been trying to fill, is to really fill the airwaves with an understanding of what the solutions are and how many of them are actually out there and active right now. So you can check us out there. Now, there's a real, you know, obviously this crisis that we're all in is making us anxious and afraid, but there's a real silver lining, which is coming out of this. Governments are going to invest in economic stimulus to get the economy going again. And this is really our chance to see a big investment that I don't think we would have seen otherwise. And so that's why I say it is a silver lining, a big investment in the infrastructure and the companies to move us forward on this clean energy way. So I've been talking with the federal government, with ministers, the Prime Minister's office, many of the staff that work there, the bureaucracy. And I hope you all saw today, we saw a real great signal from the federal government. The Prime Minister announced the oil and gas package, but he was very clear that we are not going to, in the midst of this health crisis, ignore the fact that we have an environmental crisis. And the monies that they put towards the oil and gas sector are, one, to clean up the orphaned wells. So these are this environmental real disaster out there of all these orphaned oil and gas wells. And secondly, to support companies implement the methane regulation, so to stop methane leaks, which is a real cause of climate change. So I think we saw a great signal that they are ready to use these stimulus dollars to further the environmental agenda, the climate agenda. So we need to let them all know that we really want to see that happen and their support. So here's a few things that we've been sharing with the government. I thought I'd share them with you, and then really interested in the discussion. Galen, give me a thumbs up that you can see the slides. I'm assuming it, oh yeah.
It's looking great, totally.
Thanks. So quickly, what are the goals? Well, there's some other goals besides climate action and a clean environment. So a competitive economy, you know, we want to come out of this with a stronger and competitive economy, you know, and one that isn't so focused on oil and gas, one that's got more diversity, more resilience in it. Secondly, secure jobs, clearly something that's important for all Canadians, healthy communities, a clean environment, and climate action. So I'm going to focus on the climate action piece today. Just to start, how many people are, now of course I'm trying to talk to you, but you're not going to be able to answer me very well, but you can just wave your hands. How many people knew that there were 300,000 Canadians already employed in the clean energy sector? We put together this study last year to see really how big, you know, we all know how big the oil and gas sector is. How big is the clean energy sector? You know, and we found that from coast to coast to coast, there's 300,000 people already working in the clean energy sector. Small businesses, medium-sized businesses, rural jobs, urban jobs. So we have a lot of the pieces to move forward. We have the businesses, we have people already skilled and working in the sector. And what I thought I would just give you is what we're putting forward as 6 of the key components of a clean stimulus package. So that's what we've been talking about, a green recovery, a green clean stimulus package. So first, you know, we need to get Canadians back to work quickly in this resilient economy that we want to build. Today's announcement with the oil and gas workers, that is a key piece. You know, there's been a lot of focus on that, putting those workers back to work, cleaning up the mess of the oil, the orphaned wells. Good approach. Secondly, actually getting out there to stop the leaks. Great thing. But all across Canada, getting people back to work is a key component. Now, we've got some big goals here. So what about a big vision and a big goal that every home, every building has eliminated energy waste in Canada? So this is one of the big areas we could put people back to work. The government has said that they wanted to retrofit 1.5 million homes and buildings. Now's the time to do it. Again, across Canada, jobs in, you know, for electricians, for construction workers, for HVAC operators, for insulators, like this woman here, Ashley. So that's a big, audacious goal, but one that would get people back to work and reduce energy waste, which means less pollution, less energy being used. And that actually helps with affordability as well. So most families are stretched always. And we're seeing in places that the tighter you get windows in your house, you put insulation in the walls or in the ceiling as well. You swap out your gas furnace for a HVAC furnace, etc. All of these things are going to create jobs right now and create better home, better buildings for people that cost less. Another key component of the stimulus package is that Canada is a clean economy leader. So what does I mean by that? I'm meaning that Canada moves forward with the commitments that they made, all of the policies and the regulations around the Pan-Canadian framework. So that was Canada's climate plan. And the message here is now is not the time to move backwards. Now is the time to keep moving forward on the commitments they made on climate actions and all the policies and regulations that go with them. So if some people saw in the media today, you know, the oil and gas sector had written a letter a month ago to the Prime Minister asking him to not move forward on those things like the clean fuel standard, carbon pricing, the methane regulations. There's others, the zero emission vehicles. Our message is no, move forward on those. You need to keep your commitments out. What you said you were going to do, keep moving forward on them. And that's actually going to get the clean energy sector going and the jobs going there. Okay, so we've got number one, those were in a bit of a mixed up order. Number one, move forward with your climate policies and regulations and laws. Move forward with your climate plan. Number two, we want zero emission, we want buildings that are retrofitted so that they're wasting no energy. Next one here is around zero emission electricity. Canada's actually got 80% clean electricity right now. By clean, we mean zero emission. So it's not producing climate pollution. We could easily get to 100%, and the government's committed to get to 90% by 2030. Well, let's get moving on that with this vision of having 100% zero emission electricity in Canada. You know, it'll probably be 99 point something. There's a few places where that's difficult in the north, but we could get near zero emission electricity. Interestingly, a lot of these projects that we could move forward immediately are in Alberta, and that's an area that's, we all know, that has been hit very hard and needs jobs. But both wind and solar projects are ready to go for Alberta. And again, we've got projects like this across the country. So clean electricity. Next, smart, clean mobility network. So this is a school bus. I know you're all familiar with those. This one's made in Quebec. Now, who knew that Canada actually has some of the leading clean bus manufacturers in the world? This is Lion Electric Bus from Quebec. We have New Flyer in Manitoba. You know, we've got a couple in BC and Ontario. And most of these electric bus companies are selling their products to the US and China and Europe, other countries. We aren't buying them here at home in Canada. So this government committed to put 5,000 electric buses on the road, school buses and transit buses. Let's push them to do that, but it's more than just electric buses. It's creating all of our transportation networks. Again, this is an opportunity with this stimulus to ensure that we're investing in transit, for one, which is really hurting right now. Continue with the electric vehicle charging networks, continue with their zero emission vehicle strategies. And so that's for cars, that's for trucks, and buses. And this is, transportation is where 1/4 of our emissions come from in Canada. And so this is an area where we really need to double down. In addition, one of the things to know is that trucks, the freight trucks and all the Amazon orders that we're doing now, this is one area where our emissions are actually going up. In a lot of other areas, we've been able to flatten our emissions, but in the freight truck area, Canada and globally, the emissions are going up. So it's an area that really needs some solutions. And the great thing is there's a lot of great Canadian companies already working on this stuff. We're producing electric vehicle auto parts. And so this is a moment that we could actually help shift our auto sector, but also get these things put across Canada, the infrastructure created. So we have coast to coast electric vehicle charging networks. We've got strong transit systems. And then lastly, the sixth solution is Made in Canada clean tech solutions. So we have a lot of great Canadian companies. There's a group in San Francisco every year that puts out the Global Clean Tech 100. And often Canada gets about 10 or 11 of these top companies in the world, the Global Clean Tech 100 list. 10, 11, 12 are from Canada. And interestingly, I see we're from across the country, people on here today, which is fantastic. Often about half of those are from British Columbia, which is really a small population when it comes to the whole of Canada. And why is that? It's because of the carbon price that we've had in British Columbia for over a decade. And so it's interesting how our climate action drives our clean tech sector. And we're seeing jobs in this sector across the country. This guy here that we're showing actually used to be an oil and gas worker. He decided to go upgrade his education. He's now working in a clean tech company in Quebec. And so it's a great sector that employs all kinds of people and all kinds of skills, whether it's tradespeople, whether it's downtown people, or whether it's nerds who are computer brains and are coming up with new kinds of solutions. There's a whole gamut of people who are employed in the clean tech sector. So those are what we see as 6 of the components of a stimulus package for Canada. Now, let's talk about, and I know Galen's going to take us into this conversation, what can you do to help? You know, I would say, you know, if you're looking at the news, you're seeing that the oil and gas sector and others are very organized and have been in there asking for governments to reduce environmental regulations. They've also been in there really pushing, you know, we just need to keep business as usual. We just need to double down, get people back to work. In fact, there's a whole bunch of us who are saying, you know, and you who are saying, no, actually, this is the moment. This is the moment where we can use this injection of money that's going to come from governments to stimulate the economy. We can use it to drive us to the economy that we want. Let's invest in an economy that's going to have less pollution and is going to be more resilient. And now's the time to do that. We need to get our voices out there loudly. And so one thing I think that we can really do is get out there and talk about it on social media, on your Facebook pages, on your Instagram pages. If you use Twitter, we really need to be part of the force that is talking about this and getting others to be engaged, understand it, understand the opportunities, that the opportunities do link to jobs and they link to a healthier world for our kids and for the future. So that, I think, is one of the key things to do. A second one is, I don't know how many of you have written letters to the editor. It is not something that people do every day, or letters to government, but those are actually valuable. They don't just get discarded. And they say that letters to the editor are actually one key way to influence things. So if you haven't done it before, maybe now's the moment that you want to try to do it. Again, just flooding those places with the perspective of people who want the government to move forward a clean energy agenda here. And the other thing is, I'd say, now look at that terrible image. That is not social distancing. But remember in the before time when we used to walk side by side with each other? Well, now imagine that, you know, with your 6 feet apart, but talk to people in your community, talk over that back fence, making sure that there's, I heard that a pool noodle is the way to actually think about it, a pool noodle distance between you. I challenge everyone here to go talk to 2 people about green stimulus after this conversation today. And then lastly is join events. It's very hard with the fact that we're all shut in right now, but these virtual events and making people aware. So joining up with others, and you've got this fabulous network across the country. I love the Green Hearts. Having Green Hearts, we want green stimulus to come out of that great idea and a great visual. And I'm going to go make my Green Heart as soon as we're off of this fantastic webinar. So that's in a snapshot, some ideas about green stimulus.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Merran. That was really informative, and people are obviously very engaged because we've got a whole bunch of questions here, and we're not going to have time to go through all of them, but I'm going to pass it over to Lela to pick through, I guess, or maybe there's some groupings. It looks like some groupings of questions, and see if we can ask a few. So, Merran.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks everybody for the questions and the back and forth that's happening in the chat. So that's great. So, Merran, a few questions, and they might follow a little bit the order of the slides. So going back to the very beginning when you asked the question about how many people knew 300,000 people were employed in the clean energy sector, a couple of questions about what does the clean energy sector include? You mentioned a few things like construction and electricians, like those kinds of people that work in those trades, but what exactly does the clean energy sector include?
Really good question. one, you can go to our website and we have a report on this. There's 2 reports about clean energy sector jobs. And why we did it is that most people just don't even think about what is the clean energy sector. So it includes making clean energy. So these are the jobs you would naturally think of: solar, wind, hydro. Secondly, moving clean energy. So all the transmission workers. And in fact, there are more people that work in the electricity systems, making and moving clean energy in this country than there are in the oil and gas sector. Yet we don't hear much about them. They were declared an essential service right now, which was very good, because if we all didn't have electricity, we'd be really going crazy without the internet and everything. Then thirdly, the most jobs are in wasting less energy. And so that's wasting less energy in buildings and in transportation. So in buildings, it's people doing energy retrofits to homes. So that's insulators and electricians and HVAC installers, etc. It's also people building net zero homes. Then in transportation, there's a big chunk of people who are bus drivers, because transit is a more efficient way of transportation. And also, as I said, we actually have quite a number of companies in Canada that employ quite a number of people making lower energy things like electric buses, electric vehicle parts. So that
Okay, great.
But I do encourage you to go to the website and check it out if you want more details.
Excellent. Okay, great. Thanks. Energy retrofits. We had a couple questions about that. So about the funding, and also a question about is the federal government going to coordinate the retrofit? So for example, there's training involved, transitioning those workers, there's standards, advertising, that kind of thing. Is the federal government going to take on that coordinating role? And then the subsequent question of where is that funding going to come from, or what would that funding look like?
Yeah, so they haven't announced anything. When they were campaigning last year, they talked about providing no interest loans to people through, and they hadn't announced the details of that. Exactly what it's going to look like, or even if it's going to exist, I think we all need to push that this should be a key piece of the stimulus, because it'll be good for families, businesses, and for workers. And so how it would get coordinated and all of that is not clear at this point.
Is there an overlap there between federal and provincial as well in terms of retrofit programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a group called Efficiency Canada, and I encourage you to look them up online. They're the alliance of all the efficiency companies across the country. And so they also have been working, we've been working closely with them on talking with the government. Right now, they're trying to get some programs up and going to train people while people are in lockdown right now and shut at home, to get training, so to bring new people on who can reskill to be able to do retrofits, which would be a great initiative. And then secondly, I think the likelihood is that each province will end up having a different system, but there may be an overall federal rebate program, which was done a number of years ago under the Harper government.
Okay, good, thank you. Question about the statement from Minister McKenna, where she talked about the federal government looking to invest in shovel-ready projects. So, what would be the most ready clean projects, especially since we're in a time of social isolation? What would be some of those projects that would be shovel-ready as they're looking for?
Yeah. So. One thing that we've been saying, and we had a meeting with Minister McKenna yesterday and said, we might want to start saying shovel ready and shovel worthy, because there's a lot of shovel ready projects like building roads. And that's often what governments do, is they just, oh, we need to stimulate the economy, we're going to build roads and bridges, and And actually, we don't want the government to do that. We want shovel-worthy projects. And yes, they need to be shovel-ready to get people to work quickly, but shovel-ready and shovel-worthy. And so then the other part of the question was, what kind of projects are there? And you know, if I'm looking slightly frazzled, it's because we've been working with these 6 sectors: energy efficiency, clean power, clean fuels, clean transportation, clean technology, and energy storage, to try to put together a package of what are the shovel-ready projects. And we have 33 pages of a table right now that's
Wow.
just full of projects. So what kind of projects are they? Like I said, Alberta has actually a bunch of wind and solar projects that are shovel ready because they had a bid last year. And so those are some things. And there'll be others across the country. The energy retrofits, in fact, those are the kinds of things you can get people back to work on very quickly. Because while, you know, once the program is up and running, we have lots of small businesses across the country that do this type of work. We also, in Canada, manufacture things like insulation. So it would be a double win in terms of it would kickstart that part of the economy going as well, creating the supplies that you need to do energy retrofits. So that's a good one. On electric transportation or electrifying transportation, you know, we've been saying, look, you had goals, you had a plan over the next 3 years to install EV chargers across the country. Just triple it, just do it all in the next year. And that there's a couple of things like that, EV charging, the same with the electric buses. You had a goal of getting 5,000 on the road, get it, just ramp it up and get it all going much more quickly, and instead of sort of drabbing it out. So those are some examples of shovel ready and shovel worthy projects.
Great. I like that wording a lot. Question about how we go about creating a sense of urgency about the climate crisis. So there's definitely a sense of urgency around the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. How do we create a sense of urgency about the climate crisis as we have for the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a very good question. One that I think we've been grappling with for a long time. I felt like in 2019, people were feeling that sense of urgency much more. I think the fact that people are living, breathing, experiencing climate change now. So in Canada, whether it's flooding, you know, and the impacts that's having on people's homes and lives, whether it's the wildfires, which, you know, are making it hard to breathe. So I feel like people in 2019 were really there. I think the art of it right now is how are we going to translate the way that, you know, society was able to work together to tackle this pandemic. How can we take that energy? Because people are feeling a lot of, wow, we can work together. Look at this, we're actually working together. Look at the federal government and the provinces, they are working together. Like they have dropped a lot of the partisan politics. You know, businesses are working with government. Businesses were able to shift and start producing medical supplies. We can do this. And so how to translate the sentiment of what's going on, not just the practical stuff, but how people are feeling. We're feeling good because we are able to respond. We're feeling good because we're doing things that are working. How do we take that and translate it to climate action? I think perhaps all of you have some good ideas around that. It's also, I don't think it's just something that happens at one level. You know, we've got the federal government, we've got the provincial governments, we have the municipal governments who have been key actors and key players and who are going to need a lot of support coming out of this. And so I think it's working at any of those levels, or with businesses or with community associations. But I feel like the fact that the Prime Minister said today, we're not going to, what did he say exactly? We're in the middle of a health crisis, but we're not going to ignore that there's also an environmental crisis. Those were his words, and I think we should keep using those words.
Great. That sounds like a great place to close the conversation for now. Thanks, Merran. That was excellent. And so I know there were more questions in the chat that we didn't get to, but please know that we are saving that chat. So we'll capture those questions and see if we can follow up on them a little later. And I think we'll also, maybe with the recording of the webinar, we can send out some more of the links that Merran was talking about to some of those reports. And I know that you've been sharing some amongst yourselves in the chat as well, so that's great. We'll capture some of those and send them out as well with the link to the recording. So Galen, back to you.
Thanks so much, Lela, and thank you, Merran. That was awesome, and certainly so many more questions that people have. So like Lela said, we're going to post this as a video on the For Our Kids YouTube page, and we'll include the links that were mentioned. We can continue the conversation over on the For Our Kids Facebook page. So thanks again, Merran. And we're going to move on now. We've got a couple more things to do. We're going to do our action together. Before I explain exactly what our action is, I actually want to take a photo of all of you. So I want to ask folks who are willing to turn on their video. And in about a minute, here's your warning, in 1 minute, I will be taking a photo. For those of you who have made a heart, you could hold up your heart. For those of you who have not, you can make a heart. Oh, look, people already know how. I thought I was the only one that knew how to do this. Okay, so looks like we're about ready. I'm gonna go ahead and take the photo now in 3, 2, and I've got to turn the page because there are enough of us that doesn't fit on 1 or 2 screens. And perfect. Thank you guys so much. So now I'm going to explain the action that we're doing. I'm going to share my screen. And what we're doing is sending a message. Basically, everything that Merran talked about, talking about green recovery, we want to send this message to Canada's Minister of Finance, Bill Morneau, because he is a person with an enormous amount of power to pass legislation, to introduce legislation, to even bully pulpit power to speak on what needs to happen. So we need to make sure that he's got the right ideas in his brain. And so one way we can do that is tweet to him.